name is Gerard Uselli, and we are on episode 57. This has been an unbelievable experience talking to so many professionals, family, friends, you name it. Change is something that relates to all of us, and the way that we embrace it is essential to our well being. This next guest is no exception to the rule. The second more Catholic high school alumni, one of my classmates, Kristin Palmeri. Kristin, how
Uh,
are you?
I'm good, Gerard. Thank you for having me. What a pleasure. And it's so nice to see you after all these years. I'm excited. I love the background that you have going on. I love this message and what you're doing. It's amazing. So, the change within, thank you for doing this. This is awesome.
Anytime. And just like any other of my guests who have been on the platform before, this is always the first question that I love to ask. What was your childhood like growing up?
All right. So my childhood growing up, thank God I was pretty blessed. Of course, along with anybody, we have our challenges growing up. So I grew up in Staten Island, New York, where I learned a lot of different types of things, and I met a lot of different types of people. I have a great family, very loving. Obviously, certain things happen in families and things like that, going through friends and peer pressure and times where you feel friends are your friends and then they're not. So kind of I took a lot of that to heart at times, being an artist and a singer and very into the arts. That was my outlet, I felt like. So it was something that kind of helped me get by without having to do or stress so much and get involved in things where, God forbid, to hurt myself or go down a path where I wouldn't want to. So luckily it was pretty good, and Staten Island definitely shaped me. I really couldn't wait to go to Manhattan, and where I did, I ended up
I understand that one. So my question is, as a follow-up in that regard, is for what your perspective is as a creative type. Did you feel like it was easier to make friends, or was it a little bit more challenging?
It was in some aspects challenging and then in some aspects easier. Once I got myself grounded and understood exactly who I was, and my confidence level kind of just kept, going higher, I stopped thinking so much about what people think about me and started thinking about, how I could treat others. And in a sense, just, be friends with everybody as I do in my everyday today. And I really was, I mean, I especially am more at that point in my life. I feel like I had so many different types of friends, and I loved, having all those groups of friends.
Absolutely. And kind of to resonate with some of that to where you are today, whether they're hobbies or how your endeavors have played out, how did you get involved with singing specifically? And when did you feel like you were good at it?
Okay, so I've been singing since I was very young. At 4 years old, I had started kind of just, listening to music, dancing around, humming. And then my parents would take videos of me, and I saw from I was doing it at that age. My uncle was signed to RCA at 18, so it kind of, runs in my family.
Wow.
Was a drummer, kind of still dabbles and plays here and there. So, music was in my family. As I started being a part of different musical groups at a young age, that's when I started noticing that, this is something that was meant for me to do, not just as a hobby, but as a lifelong time, commitment, and, just something that I knew I was meant to do.
I think in retrospect to that, especially as someone as myself who has been on stage and has performed in front of a lot of people before, of course, the anxiety and the thrill always works to your advantages and maybe even sometimes your disadvantages. How do you deal with nerves after all of your experience performing?
So I think it's just exactly that. Experiences is what kind of shapes you and makes you. So through practice, repetition, kind of being on stage, going to school for this for many years, learning, from my mistakes. Let's say when something didn't feel correct or organic on stage, I would, after the performance, look at it and say, how can I make it better? What could I have done that would have been. And then sometimes it's just kind of letting it go and just not even thinking so much, and being in the moment is the most important thing. And like you said, sometimes just good things happen when, you think, oh no, something's thrown at you where it wasn't supposed to go that way. And it's how you flip it and kind of just make it smooth and, the right way. I would say that exercise practice.
I also think at the same time, just based on how you do anything in front of a group of people as well, as somebody who's now entering the classrooms, being a teacher myself, as
Mhm.
much as essential as it is to come up with your own plans for lessons, I also think to bridge that for like maybe a 50% ratio, it's so important to come up with a lot of spontaneous ideas that you feel like you could read the room on, because kids will be able to relate to you more as a person and as somebody trying to help them develop their future skills.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And, anybody that I know that's going into the teaching profession or that is in the teaching profession, education fields, I commend them because, you really are helping the future. And, it's not always so easy. There's a lot of pressure, depending on, if you're in the Department of Education or if you are, in a private practice. And, you have a lot of responsibility with the kids. But saying exactly that is just knowing how to perform and just be easily, okay, let me switch it up, be creative, let me think what I could do here to grasp their attention. That's definitely a very important thing, and teaching helped me even more, kind of sitting back and watching them and seeing, okay, what failed, what worked, and I would analyze it and make it better for the next time.
And kind of to your point, as somebody who has been through teaching yourself, and kind of not to say you reinvented yourself, but you used another passion of yours to elevate yourself to another sense of your plateau. So explain a little bit about the transition from teaching to being in the jewelry business.
Okay, so actually it was the opposite, but
Oh, really?
it goes full circle. So I'll explain how. My family business is jewelry. Since I was a kid, my dad was in jewelry manufacturing, to be exact. He came to this country like my grandparents, like my mom. First generation I am. Without a job, trying all different types of professions, and that was his niche, working in the jewelry manufacturing business. That's actually, I'm in the city right now, near Rockefeller Center, and it's great to be back. But so since I was doing that since I was young, seeing him, and he would take me to work, and I learned, how jewelry is made. From when it comes in to what it needs to do, the process, the steps that it goes through. I noticed that I liked it and I loved learning the business aspect of it. But I said I'm far too creative to just, be in this factory manufacturing plant all day long and doing that. Whereas I wanted to utilize my creativity skills. So as I got older, and I was fortunate enough, my dad, would let me work and go to school at the same time. So I was in school for the fine arts, and I had my musical theater background where I went to AMDA. And I would, kind of continue with the business. And as I got older and I started kind of getting away from the jewelry, I somehow figured how to come back to it and, still continue to design. So, I have clients that call me and they say, okay, I'm getting engaged. I would love for you to design a piece of, jewelry, an engagement ring, or I saw a one of a kind piece and, would you be able to make this a little different for me? Like, and that's where I shine and I love, and, all the skills that I acquired from when I was young, in the business and management skills. And then I was able to propel it now being older, and, my experiences, with the design and the connections that I made. So people trust me. And the singing, kind of when I was in my bachelor's in fine arts, I had noticed that there was a great position to be a director of fine arts in a preschool. So that's where I started teaching, the early childhood children, and I loved it. And I designed a whole program around the arts for them. And one of the challenges that arose was I was around kids with special needs, so I really wanted to know more about that. So that's where I said, this is my next path in life. This is where I need to go. get a double master's in special and gen ed. And I did that. And that's when I worked for the Department of Ed for a few years, and I learned so much. And, and now I still, am raising money for kids. And so there's a lot of different things that I do to help them.
Sure. Do you want to tell us about some of the charities that you're involved with currently and how people can find out more?
Absolutely. So I'm a part of the Sophie Gerson Healthy Youth Foundation. I'm kind of a coordinator there. Before the pandemic, I had wrote a song actually to have at our gala, and the lyrics, and I think we're going to do it at the next gala. But I help out with the media. I help out with the different type of coordinating the events. I help out raising more money. I give them creative ideas, how to be different, how to stand out. But what I love most about this is that they, the founder Alan Gerson, his mother Sophie Gerson was a teacher. So it comes from that, really knowing what his mother went through, and then making this organization. I love the journey. I love the spirit of it, so to speak. So I really believe in it. So I'm a part of that. And, I think it's amazing because it's locally, it's New York City schools, Bronx schools, different around lower Manhattan. So I think that's really important to give back, especially that I come from, New York. And I also sing for different types of events, like Hurricane Sandy relief is one of them. Half Man Table organization. I actually sang 3 weeks ago for the deceased 9/11 firefighter who passed away. That's Douglas. I can't recall his last name right now. But so I'm always constantly, whoever throws something at me, I'm ready to be a part of it. I ran the New York City Marathon 3 years ago, raising over 3,000 for the children.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a big one. I mean, I was involved in the school, and when I signed up, actually, I thought it was a half a marathon. So I was like, oh my goodness, it was like, and when I saw it was the full, I said, oh, well, you're gonna do it, So I trained as much as I could, and I knew that, the path and what I had to do was there, the end outcome, and I did it. And then it felt great to raise, for the children that need it. So
I was going to say, especially on the aspect of just even trying to finish half a marathon is miraculous in itself. So to be caught off guard and to actually go through the full distance, that's a very commemorating thing.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And especially what you're doing here. And I love it. I can't believe this is the 57th, you said?
57th, 6 months.
Wow. That's amazing. Good for you. Congratulations.
It's been one of those like crazy experiences that I feel like I'm only going to have once in my life in this type of capacity. And it's very cool to look back on as far as where this platform's gone. And nonetheless, on that, so I've always had an opinion where reflections and experiences lead to selflessness. And that's something both you and I share. And I wanted to hear your perspective on this. What does giving back mean to you?
So giving back means to me that, along with our hardships and our, success, right, that propels us to be better in our goals and all these things that we set forth. I think that we can't forget once we do achieve those goals and get to a point where we feel like we've, kind of reached that level, we have to give back, because so we can inspire other people around us to be, that same way. Or and a lot of times there's so many people that when we're feeling down, or when we felt down, that they need us at that point in time. So giving back can help propel someone else to do something, and be better. And then one day, set a goal or goals, So I think it's just like a full round community effect, where the more and more you give back, the more and more society will be better, and I know people say, oh, a little change, whatever. It doesn't matter. A little change is still a change, So it's important. For me, it's everything.
I could not agree more with that. And even with the things that you're willing to give back on, of course, you do things for your own sustainability, and that has been severely impacted through the repercussions of COVID-19. So I wanted to ask, how have you pivoted through your passions in this pandemic?
Yes. So before the pandemic, I actually resigned from the Department of Ed to go back into touring. So I was singing. I, had a great run in Canada, New York City, Boston, Europe. And through that, when the pandemic had happened, I was like, okay, so what's going to happen now? I was pretty much ready to go audition again for Broadway, continue touring. I write my own music, and I've been working with a producer in Italy, where now finally I'm going back next month to continue and finish some songs. But when that happened, it was a very confusing time to everybody. It was a fearful time, I know, to many. And I just said, okay, what am I going to do here? What should I sit back and be upset and make myself dwell and just kind of like let myself go, or take this time to kind of learn from it, even though it was very confusing, and just say, okay, what can I work on? What can I get better on? So also in the midst of getting my third degree black belt in Taekwondo in Staten Island, where I lived for a long time. And I said, I'm going to continue with these lives, doing, and I'm going to start doing lives myself. I was interviewing my friends that were going in the hospitals, talking to people what they were doing to make themselves better every day, journaling, um, different types of things to just make people feel good, even though it was like a time where it was very discerning and confusing. So at least I would reach some people. And I worked on myself as well. I cooked a lot. I was able to write a lot of music, communicating through these Zooms, which I, am familiar with technology, and I'm pretty advanced. I wouldn't say the most advanced. I'm old school in certain aspects, but the Zooms were really interesting. And so I kind of just went with it. And I had it. My parents have a condo in Florida, and I always loved Florida. And I felt like I was at a point where I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe I can make this transition to Florida now. And I did. And, I was doing live music with fellow performers in Florida. I ended up buying a house in Florida during the pandemic. I ended up getting my real estate license in Florida during the pandemic.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was supposed to get my license at 18 in New York, and then I just got busy with the arts and ads and things like that. So it was always things that I wanted to do that I kind of went back to and did it in Florida. And I come back to my roots. I'm in New York almost once a month, if not twice. So it's like it's really nice. I feel like it, in a way, for me, very sad time, but I made the best out of it, and a lot of people did, so, and a lot of people, it was scary, and it's, for everybody. So I feel like we learned a lot from it.
I also think in hindsight, as you're going through something, and I feel like in the pandemic, what we all had in common was we were digesting information as the moments went by. So in those cases, when you feel like you have every like part of you attached to a wall and feeling like you can't really crawl out of it, what you were saying before about talking to people who are going into the hospitals and having them cope with their trauma in a way of communication. My point is, in this case, is you need to talk more than just absorb. I feel like to have that sense of communicating to other people how you're feeling is one of the biggest swords against mental health.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the more and more we talk about it, the better. Um, I kind of digress from putting out negativity, just because it doesn't get us anywhere, and it hurts
Exactly.
people's, yeah, and it hurts people's feelings, and I just feel like that's not, who I am. And so sometimes instead of entertaining that, I'll just put something nice out there, so then we could discuss something nice, as opposed to, that was a little concerning for me, seeing so many different things that I wouldn't have expected. But it was a time where people just like didn't know how to react and do things. And you know what? I think a lot of us learned a lot of lessons from it. So that's a good aspect.
And as my final question, as a reflection of all of this through our conversation, also something that I like to ask all of my guests as well is what is the biggest change you want to see for yourself now?
Okay, so I'm very content and happy, like my sacrifices and my changes in life and different journeys. And I'm ready, always for different things that come along my way. Um, but I've been thinking a little bit lately as, I get older, if I'm going to have a family, it should be in the near future. And I want to still be able to, continue my passions and fulfill, different dreams that I've put time into and goals and achievements. So I think that would be my biggest change. That not that I sometimes digress from, I'm trying to kind of look at it and say, okay, is this something that I do want? And if I do want it, I should, start entertaining it. And so that might be probably the biggest change in my life, to have a family and have kids and still be a, working professional. Because I like that balance. I feel like I can never let that go, so.
Absolutely. And as a final hot take on this as well, for anyone who wants to build a family, I think the beauty in that is when you're building that foundation of the legacy of what your last name represents versus how society goes throughout life as far as just where the future is holds. It's very sound of anyone willing to step into parenthood and be there for their children and guide them through the steps and share things along the way. Because I feel like, as far as playing into the realm of selflessness, that's what we all having. Well, that's where all parents do have something in common, where they're willing to share what their knowledge is to a younger generation. But nonetheless, that is my final hot take for episode 57 of the Change Within podcast. For those who want to check us out, please do so on Anchor, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Kristin, thank you very much for joining, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Gerard. Thank you for everything you do. This has been amazing. And I look forward to speaking to you shortly. Thank you.
You got it. Bye bye.